having us here today. I think this is something that's long overdue, something that we've talked about for a while now. The partnership between Blast and NCSA has been going on for about a year. But, with how busy we all are and developing new relationships and being out in the field and working at different events, we just never had the chance to really sit down and blast through this. So I think for, all the negative that is going on, I think this is one positive. Is a lot of the things that have been on many people's to-do list and a lot of the things that we've talked about doing, we're finally getting that opportunity. So thank you very much for that. And, for those that aren't familiar with yourself or kind of your background, you want to walk us through that?
Sure. First of all, Nelson, thank you very much for having me. And you're exactly right. I'm excited to get deeper into this partnership, provide some detail to everybody here in the audience today. It's unfortunate the times that we're in, but through this partnership and through some of the other features available on the Blast platform, I think we can definitely show some coaches and some players how to really start to take the reins of the recruiting process, especially because not anybody's out there on the field right now. So a little background on myself. I grew up in South Jersey, just outside of Philadelphia. Got my Eagles Super Bowl champs shirt on underneath this bomber jacket. Went to college at the University of Pennsylvania, pitched and hit, played infield, first and third base, and started at Blast in October of 2018. Started on the sales side out east, closing new business, bringing on new clients, transferred over to the Central. Nelson, that's when I got to meet you. And then when I moved over to account management in August of last year, started working with you directly as a client. Luckily got to get to know you at the ABCA convention this year. So a little bit about my role now, how it's changed from sales. I work with everybody, or most of our clients, myself and John Moscott, who I know you know as well, work with everybody on the amateur side. I saw Billy Harden from Cy-Fair High School out in Texas on the call. Pumped to see you here, Billy. So I help with onboarding, training, education on the numbers, what they mean, their application, how they correlate with outcomes, how to approach the numbers on a team level, on an individual level, and some of the more advanced reporting stuff as well. So right now, I'm as busy as ever, which I'm definitely thankful for, again, despite the circumstances. But a lot of our job as account managers is around educating and continuing to keep guys motivated and players motivated. So been on a few podcasts recently, a ton of webinars, some for the masses, some targeted right to our clients and their parents and players as well. So thankful to be on this side of baseball and technology, and looking forward to getting into it with you today.
Awesome. I think on a different call or a different webinar, we could talk through the double doink, and we can talk through how I think Nick Foles will help the Bears. But I think that's a different audience, a different time. But very cool to have you. And for those that I haven't had the chance to meet or speak with in the past or aren't familiar with me and my role, my name is Nelson Gord. I'm the director of baseball with NCSA. In addition to that, I also run a travel baseball organization, the Illinois Indians, out of the Chicagoland area. I've spent time as a college coach, as a head high school coach, as a freshman high school coach, and had the opportunity to play both Division I and professional baseball. I've been with NCSA for just under 7 years now, and my role there has kind of evolved and changed over time. But really what I'm most passionate about is connecting all the dots and finding new and creative ways to help get athletes' names out there, finding interesting partnerships and groups that I know are like-minded to help promote these players and paint a better picture of who they are as both people and as athletes. And so one thing that was really important is having, this type of data being made available to the college coaches and having a mechanism by which them to get that information into their profiles. So with that, I think we need to put a little context to it, and there's nothing here that anybody isn't familiar with. And we're all, really becoming more and more accustomed to this new norm, I guess you could call it. But the important thing to know is that beyond just us being stuck in our houses and the seasons being canceled and everything else, the NCAA has mandated this quote unquote dead period. And I say it with quotes because it's not the traditional dead period, because coaches are still allowed to communicate with athletes. if they're age and grad year eligible, they can call them, they can be emailing them, which isn't true of a traditional dead period. But there's no campus visits going on. There's no ball being played. And even if somebody were to say tomorrow that in a particular state the high school season was going to resume, the NCAA is still saying coaches can't go out there and recruit. Okay, so I think that makes it all the more important. And that's really why we wanted to do this, is because we need to figure out ways to get information into coaches' hands. And while you're putting in the work, you might as well be promoting that and giving them a tool to be able to see it. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about the development pyramid, and you'll get a clear picture of that. But really what I want everyone to know is that I think a lot of people are intimidated by technology as a whole, because you're either not that advanced in it, you haven't had that much exposure to it. But no, just as with coaching a player, and going from T-ball to coach pitch to Little League, on up into high school and college baseball, it's a slow process. And there are certain things that you can do and certain things that you can familiarize yourself that will make it substantially easier, as you continue throughout that. I reserved the blast specific demos for all the extra base hits, because I think those two have a nice little parallel. So the double, triple, the home run of today's agenda, we're going to talk about how those foundational things, how those fundamental things can be applied using some really simple blast data. We're going to hop into more of the higher level, I don't want to say analytics, but the metrics that are used and how they've really boiled those down to simple them into first 3 categories, but now even taking it a step further and just providing one number for you to use. And then finally, we're going to walk through some of the new reporting and some of the new features that Blast is offering, and how that can help you as a coach work with your players, how that can help you as a player, in your development timeline, and then also how you can get that information into the hands of college coaches. So anything I missed there, Jeff?
Nope. Sounds good to me, man. Let's get into it.
All right. So this development pyramid that I was talking about, and a lot of this stuff was on that last slide. The first thing, is really, really simple. We're going to talk about, the most simple metrics, just swing quantity, right? And on a lot of the recent webinars and coach meetings that you guys have done, this concept of more swings equal better hitters has been really at the forefront. And I know for my own program, when we first came on with Blast Connect and started using it with all players, that was the first thing that jumped out at me as well. Like, I could do a really, really deep dive here with any one particular player, but when I just look at the guys that are putting in the most work, they're seeing results, right? And I think you guys have done a fantastic job of highlighting some of the programs throughout the country that have been at the forefront of that and that have put in the most swings. So is there anything that you've seen or you guys have seen overall as far as the quantity of swings, either going up or going down during this time? How has everything really impacted what's going on here?
Well, when all this stuff first started developing, we saw a pretty large downtick in swings. I mean, everything was starting to hit the fan, and there was a lot of everyone was really unsure as to how it was all going to play out. I know colleges sent their guys home for spring break with the intentions that they were going to be back in a week playing again. After that first week, when I think Ivy League was the first collegiate league to officially cancel the season, we saw even more of a downtick. And then it started trickling down to high schools. While they were still playing a few weeks after colleges started taking actions, they started getting a little nervous. And after that kind of phase fizzled out and people kind of just took the lemons they were given, they decided to try and make lemonade. And then we saw that graph turn. And actually, every single day this past week, we've broken the daily swing record. Any day since we've been in business. Yesterday was the number one. We had the number one swing total taken across baseball and softball. So it's just a testament to baseball players in general. We'll work. It shows us that everybody's still hopeful that a season's going to be right around the corner. And it's no wonder that, your hardest workers are your best players. Those are the guys that are most into it. Those are the guys that are going to be diving into this kind of stuff, asking the right questions, and the ones who are, making their own baseball tees out of PVC pipe and a vacuum hose. So like I said earlier, I'm thankful to be on this part because people are coming to us with more questions, asking how can we utilize some of these other features in Blast Connect that maybe didn't make sense to look into when we had our guys there in person. So it's keeping us busy, and it's just great to see everybody that's still out there, still working and still preparing for hopefully June.
Sure. And just to paint a picture, you said yesterday was the number one swing total you guys have ever had. How many roughly was that?
Over 300,000 actions in one day.
Holy cow, 300,000. And I guess my challenge, my question to both coaches and players that are on right now, think about what percentage of that you are, right? Are you the person that's contributing 0? Are you putting in 100, 150? Because knowing that there's 300,000 swings out there in one day, somebody's hungry, somebody's getting after it, right? And I think the same thing, I forget what time frame I put on that leaderboard that's in the middle of that slide. But to think that one of the players that is in our program took roughly 5,000 more swings than anybody else. Well, two things. I don't know if it was truly 5,000 more. It was 5,000 more connected to Blast. But my challenge to those other guys, like, why don't you have that many? Right, and that's a significant gap there, and that means either guys aren't connected properly or they're not putting in the work of other guys. But now's the time where the cream's going to rise to the top. So,
Yep.
do you want to walk us through some of the things on the Blast Connect and
Sure.
show us where you can see that and what that looks like?
Yeah, I want to share a cool story. You mentioned time. I mean, everybody's got time right now, and I want to give a shout out to one of our clients, the Brooklyn Bulldogs, out in Brooklyn, New York, like in the middle of all of this, and they are still consistently week to week in the top 10 of every single one of our clients that are taking swings. So they have, I want to say, over 22,000 swings last week, through I believe around 75 players. And I asked them how they were doing it, because everything's obviously shut down in New York. Someone who I just got off the phone with, Jason Lefkowitz up in Connecticut, told me that New York City now has more coronavirus cases than any other country in the entire world.
Right.
So, but they have more swings than 95% of our clients, and they're doing it from their tiny little Brooklyn apartments. They're tying wiffle balls to dumbbells and putting it on a string on a tee and hitting it into a sheet right there in their living room. I got a picture
Awesome.
of someone's father on a Zoom meeting and his kids behind him. He's got a sock balled up, because if you hit a sock hard enough, the sock explodes and doesn't travel very far. It doesn't break anything in the house. So it's so cool to really see people work and still want to collect these metrics and get better. So yeah, do you want me to share my screen and run through some features of Blast Connect?
Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be
what they're looking at.
really great. Yep.
All right. So in Blast Connect right here, this is going to be your coach's view. So the head of the Brooklyn Bulldogs, Mark Lussier, basically is able to access any one of the players on his team, see the total number of swings each guy's taking, and their average scores for their swing quality metrics. On plane efficiency, just how direct you are to the ball, how efficient your path to the baseball is a good number to help give you an idea of how much clutter or how much extra movement you have on your way to the baseball that you could eliminate to, again, make that path more direct. Connection takes into account your load position. So your bat and body relationship at the start of your downswing, 1, is it consistent? 2, is it in a good spot to get to pitches up or down in the zone? And then the position of your bat and body at impact as well, making sure that you're at 90 degrees between where your spine is and where your bat is, which is going to be the strongest position possible. Anybody who's way too upright is going to have trouble hitting that outside pitch. If you imagine trying to get there with really extended arms, there's not going to be any force or power behind that bat, and that bat's going to significantly decelerate when it makes contact with that ball. Or are you way too hunched over home plate and really cutting off your ability to get to that inside pitch because your body's in the way of your hands really getting to that ball at a solid contact point? Rotation will be the third one, and that basically tells you, okay, in the first quarter of your swing, how close are you able to get to top speed? How much force do you generate in that first movement of gaining ground towards the baseball? And does that movement come from the core and lower half, like bringing that bat forward, or does it come from handsy guys kind of starting their swing with their arms and wrists? So the higher that number, typically the lower time to contact, and the more time hitters have to see pitches in, identify the spin, and identify the location. So from there, you can dive into any individual player, and your players, every single user on Blast Motion has access to this page as well. So here's some search functionality up in the top left. Just name, date range, any filters if you guys want to create sessions and tag environments. So if you want to compare your tee swings to your in-game swings and see where you're breaking down, you can get some pretty solid insights there. But where I would like everybody to pretty much focus, especially at this time, is looking at these 3 scores. Blast Motion will give you information on any one, but it'll automatically highlight the one that you struggle with the most, give you a quick explanation of what, in this case, rotational acceleration is, give you an analysis of your swing, bullet points on why this metric is important, and then drills that you can do. All off a tee, all done in our lab here, and all definitely, apparently, doable in a tiny New York City apartment. So if you want to go deeper, you click on Swing Data, and you're brought to a page that tracks progress over, again, any date range, any given period of time, has other metric averages as well, like bat speed, attack angle, power, time to contact, I mentioned earlier. And then below that, every single individual swing with the handedness tag, the environment tagged, and the equipment that you used. There's also other tools that coaches are beginning to utilize that can help engage guys who they obviously can't be in touch with or there in person every single day. The main one being our video analysis tool. So here is my media library. Every single player has the ability to, whether on Android or the iPhone, take videos of their swings. The cool thing about this feature is that if you press record and take 100 swings, and I go back to that phone and press stop record, it's going to break up every single one of those swings into a 6-second clip, automatic slow motion from started downswing to impact, and it's going to share it to the cloud where it's accessible to your coach. Your coach is going to be able to log in here, hit a drop-down menu, pick any player.
I think we lost your screen suddenly.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Get you back up. Good?
Yep, we got you now.
Cool. So coaches are able to access this video library right here and see any video that you've taken. They can use this analyze feature right here, which will bring up a new tab with our web analysis tool in there, and they'll be able to, let me move our faces over, record their screen and record their voice, draw and annotate on the video, and then save that video and assign it right back to that player. When they click send, that player is going to be notified via email that Coach Gorb, for example, just broke you down. Click this link to access your video library and Blast Connect it and hear their feedback. So again, just based on the times, there's a lot of features in Blast Connect that can be utilized to help engage your players and help report on different areas of the swing, and also let the guys hear your voice too. So spend a lot of time educating people on where to go for that, how to make it operational, and how to work at any kinks.
Yeah, and this is something right here that, you know, beyond just the recruiting aspect, one thing I'm really concerned with is I have so many close friends and people I've worked with over the years that, you know, own different academies and facilities and stuff. And I mean, they're at risk of, in some cases, you know, shutting the doors, right? Because nobody can come in. But if they can get this tool in the hands of their players, if they can start conducting a lot of this training online, I think in many cases it's even better, right? Because now during the season, when things do return to normal, they'll have a mechanism by which to continue to work with those guys, even, you know, if they're in Georgia or they're down in Texas or out in California, and get accustomed to a different way of doing things that is probably a lot more efficient, and, you know, you can do from anywhere in the country.
No doubt. And then probably the coolest thing, again, based on the times, I mean, the high school season's canceled, and we mentioned recruiting earlier. So what does this all look like? And apologies if I'm getting ahead of what else.
No. Let's just go with it.
These metrics, those numbers, and these videos can all be loaded into a player profile here on Blast and marketed out directly to these college coaches and sent out to obviously next college student athlete. So I'm just wondering, with this NCAA decision that, or well, obviously with all the high school seasons canceled, how many fringe seniors are there, or how many? I was recruited heavily my junior year of high school and committed in the fall of my senior year. How many guys are unable to get those looks they need to in the spring, or even in the first half of summer if the season doesn't start till June or even July? How are college coaches going to be able to prepare for such a short recruiting season and build a pipeline of talent that they want to see at these showcases? Or are they just going to show up at X event in Georgia and kind of bounce around, flying by the seat of their pants, trying to find a diamond in the rough? With some of these features and with this partnership, I really feel like players and coaches can sort of take the reins and set up that pipeline and get a head start on that shortened summer recruiting season, and have a much better idea of who to go after. And then with the expansion of college rosters, and with the option for guys to exercise a fifth year, I think recruiting is also going to be that much more competitive, and people are going to have to try to gain an edge wherever they can. And if you don't attend maybe an extra showcase or two, or you don't play an extra 15 games for another team in the area, who knows how that could set you behind.
And no question. And it's really remarkable how many guys were kind of waiting for the senior year. I mean, my assumptions and kind of what we've known to be true over time is that most guys do start to paint a pretty clear picture in their junior year. They might go on some visits in the fall of their senior year and make a decision. But there are a boatload of high school seniors out there right now that are still looking, or were waiting for this to be their coming out party. And I really hurt for them, right? Because they're not getting that chance, and they don't really have any other options. Again, that's why it's so important to get their information out there, to utilize tools like Blast and the Blast profile and the NCSA profile, because they don't have anything else to do. And if they're not currently doing it, then my question is, how is it ever going to happen? Because I just don't see another outlet. And same thing for the guys that are juniors, sophomores, and coming in behind that. If your current plan of action was to wait until you kind of get there into being an upperclassman or even a senior, this is a great example why there's no better time than now, right? Yep. So start figuring it out, start growing that network, start playing around with the tools, because I know it sounds pretty cliche, but you never know what tomorrow is going to bring. So you have to take advantage of every opportunity that's presented today.
And you guys at NCSA are offering some pretty cool stuff to players and coaches right now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been working a lot with our high school programs to ensure that those guys that need it the most, the juniors and especially the seniors that are still uncommitted, are getting access to more and more of some of the premium tools. So any high school coaches that are on the line that really want to, assist them, please reach out to me. Let me know who they are and how we can help. And same thing with any of the guys that are on the line that are those athletes. We can unlock some of the features and try to get this Blast data in there so that those coaches can track you. And while you have a Blast Connect up there, could you go in and just show people, you don't have to go through the entire process, but just what that export to NCSA would look like?
Sure. That screen share working?
Yep.
Excellent. So I have some screenshots right here. If you're a Blast user, again, contact myself or Nelson if you have any questions on how to get your numbers in there. Step one, just obviously log into Blast Connect. Click on the Get Recruited section, click on your profile picture in the top right and select the profile section in the drop-down menu. Only players will have this option. It's going to be different from for a coach. They're just going to be able to edit the academies or team's profile as a whole. So again, only available on the individual user level or player level. And then click the Get Recruited section in order to launch that NCSA integration. Again, really easy step-by-step process. From there, fill out the necessary athlete and parent information. Again, self-explanatory. And log, upload your videos. So from that media library there in Blast Connect, you can take your best swings, take your worst swings. I mean, who knows? Number of swings, track and progress paints a really good picture of work ethic. If you want to feature a swing from your freshman year of high school to your senior year of high school and show how you've grown and packed on 30 pounds, like, approach it however you want, man. What's cool about this is the players have the reins here. They can market themselves however they please, and I think the more creative they can get, the better off, or the better chance they have of really getting noticed. They can also upload transcripts, grade point averages, class loads. They can upload other metrics not associated with blast motion, like pop times, 60 times, 40 times, any videos of them as proof, running those, or again, thrown down to second base, rolling a double play in the middle infield. If mom or dad happens to get a video on their iPhone, they can include all of that under the highlight videos tab. From there, load your blast data in the statistics section. You can select any date range, any number of swings, and we'll highlight your metric averages right there. And then publish to NCSA. Click that drop down publish and share button right there. You do not have to make your profile public to share it to NCSA. And from there, you're loaded into that database.
Yeah, it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And, I know one of the things that is kind of, I'll call it a hurdle, is that this is within Blast Connect, but you guys also have a promotion going on with that, right? To get some kids access to it.
Yeah, doing a train from home special on sensors. The sensors retail for $150 and they're available for $75 through the website right now to get started. Player profiles. If you're a team and you're looking to get multiple guys on board and try some remote coaching things, the player profile rates are discounted from the monthly rates if you go through a rep. And then we also have profiles available for $6.95 a month. So if you're hoping that this is short-lived and you want to sign up for April, May, and June, the first month's going to be free. So you're all in for $13. You can build that profile out, send it to NCSA, and publish that before you expire.
Yeah, and the data on the NCSA side, all the blast data, there's no charge for that free profile, and to export it. I'll steal the screen back just to show what that looks like within NCSA. I'm going to try to. There we go. Let's see. Share that. And
Got it.
It helps if I share the right one, though. Too many windows, too many devices. There we go. Yeah, when you took control of it, it made all my windows go away. There we go. Yeah, so there's a player in our program right here that you can see. He was the one that was at the top of that leaderboard and had 7,000 plus swings. But you could see just within the past, couple weeks to 6 weeks, he's uploaded a lot of data into there and really got all of his information. So, beyond just what the numbers mean, I think if I'm a college coach looking at this and seeing this constant updating, seeing the information being populated into profiles, that's telling me, one, that they're working, and two, that they really want it and they really care. And I think those are two things that are really challenging to communicate to a college coach, and something that's so important because they go through so many profiles and so many emails and so much information on every player that you need ways to stand out. And by virtue of doing this, it's saying, hey, like, even though his coach isn't making him do it, or he may be the kid in Brooklyn with the sock. I think the one you're talking about with the vacuum, that was a U.S. Elite player, right?
Yep.
I think I heard them talking about that, but they're being creative, they're being resourceful. And I think we both recognize that in college baseball and professional baseball, having that skill set being able to make the most out of very little is something that oftentimes creates a great player, right? So I think that's what all this adds up to, just a more recruitable athlete overall. And you can see here in the NCSA profile, you can also connect that right back over to the Blast profile that's been created as well. So really neat integration and a way to show a better picture rather than just a 10-second video or a ball exit speed, right? Which has kind of been the standard prior to this. Gives those coaches a better idea of really what's going on. So any other stories that you've come across from the college side or the amateur side that are telling that story of how the coaches are connecting that you've seen?
I mean, I'm probably on at least 2 academy webinars a day. So my role's kind of changed. Instead of making it so that, I mean, ultimately I'll usually tell guys when I get on the phone with them that my job is to make it so you never have to contact me again. I want to make you the expert on Blast. I want to give you as much knowledge and power as I have as far as Blast Motion, the metrics, and the whole system is concerned. Now, because coaches can't really spend as much time in person with players, we're taking a lot more time kind of running the whole group through, and also telling them and just sharing these successes and how important it is to make sure that kids are staying motivated, kids are working, kids are being physical outside, getting exercise, staying healthy during these times. I mean, I'm sitting here, luckily it's dumping rain in San Diego, California, but I'm starting to go a little stir crazy and wish I wasn't 6'3" swinging a 34-inch bat so I could set up a little tee right behind me and take some swings in my living room. But no, I think it's just so cool that there's so many academies and so many players who are still working. And even, in mid-January to mid-February, when that's like prime time for college preseason and winter workouts and inter squads. I know Texas starts their season in late January, so that's right around when their preseason is as well. Where I grew up in the Northeast, that was when I started to visit facilities and really started to ramp up, especially after I quit basketball. But the fact that we're continuing to each day surpass where we were the previous day, which was the original record, is so cool. And it's just great to be a part of it on the forefront. And it's really rewarding as well to have so many people come to you and ask questions. Hey, what do I do here? What's this feature? Can you hop on a call with my program? And it's like, man, it's your program. You're running the show. And the fact that you want to hear my input is just, is humbling. So it's just great to see everyone getting creative and keep it up, guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's it too, is there are a lot of guys that have been around the game for, a long time, right? Guys that have been running travel programs, they're high school and college coaches that have been coaching for 25, 30 plus years. And I think one of the big, reasons they haven't embraced all the new technologies as much is just because of time. And I think that's been the really refreshing thing to see over the course of the past month, is that there are all sorts of webinars going on. There's all sorts of information sharing. There's really this void that has been created that for a lot of these guys needs to be filled. And suddenly you're starting to see light bulbs go off. You're starting to see them embrace it. You're starting to see, just that aha moment where they're like, oh, okay, like, yes, I understand that taking more swings is going to make a better hitter. I understand that, swinging hard is going to produce damage. Like, these are all things that I've said for a long time, but now I can actually see it. Now I can actually track it. And now, maybe most importantly, I don't even need to be there, to monitor it. And that's, was a huge thing for us, just being here in the Chicagoland area and the traffic and the geographic area that we cover. I mean, we have over 60, I think like 65 high schools that are represented in our program. We can't assume that every kid's going to be able to travel to a single facility every night. It would be selfish of us, and it's just not feasible. So encouraging them to work out with their high school teams or at a facility that's closer to home, but still being able to get insight to those metrics has been an absolute game changer for us.
Awesome.
One thing I did put up here, and I don't believe that you did touch on it, for the kid that's swinging a bat in his Brooklyn apartment, or the one that's in his backyard in a Chicago suburb, one of the challenges you can't see ball flight. And can you just like touch on that or share a little bit about how that functionality works? I understand it's not perfect, but it's a lot more, efficient and something that's pretty neat to keep guys engaged, right? To keep them excited about swinging a bat. So if you want to steal the screen back and show what that ball flight looks like.
You can leave that one up. This is what I would show anyway. So it's a feature available in the Blast Baseball app. So under the live tab or in the camera option, you'll notice there's a little button where you can switch ball flight on. After you turn ball flight on, you press record on your device and it'll walk you through setup. What's most important is that you get the measurements as exact as possible. So what you're going to measure is the direction. So if I'm a right-handed hitter, I'm going to take the measurement from the center of home plate directly perpendicular to that right-handed batter's box. That's going to be the distance you set. And then you're going to end up moving the camera in front of that point. But you're not going to measure the hypotenuse of that right triangle. You're going to measure the longer leg. From there, you set whether the hitter is going to be on the left or right, and you're off and running. Make sure the lighting's good. Make sure there's as solid as possible of a background, and make sure that if the background's white, you're hitting a darker object, and if the background's black, you can obviously hit a baseball or a white wiffle ball. If you are working out in a New York City apartment, having that view and having that spray chart right there, I think might help them, help the imagination, help the engagement, help the motivation to actually see a live spray chart of where your hits are going. If you're working with some younger guys and you really want to get them excited, if you set your distance to, let's say, 8 feet and you actually have the camera 6 feet away, it'll up exit velocities by like 25 miles an hour and up the distance by 100 feet. So if you want to put them in a major league ballpark and 400-foot fences and show them that they're hitting home runs right there in their Brooklyn living room, I think that could be a fun little tip or a fun little trick too. So yeah, it's great. It records exit velocities, and if you're stuck inside, it can be a really solid way to validate training as well. So hey, we did a bat speed program in our basement. Your bat speed went from 55 miles an hour to 62 miles an hour during the month of quarantine. And when we tested you from day one on your exit velocities, you averaged around 82. And by day 30, your average went up to 87 miles an hour and your distance increased by 15 feet, which, hey, that's a big difference if an outfielder is catching a ball like this to trying to catch a ball like that, or if they're catching a ball over the shoulder, that's going to be a double that falls over their head, or even a home run. So definitely a fun way to validate all the pre-impact training.
And the reason I wanted you to go through that is because the weather's finally starting to change here in Chicago, and I plan on bringing my 5-year-old out to get some work in, and I know that he'll get a kick out of that. And also, I can vouch for the credibility. If you take the time to set it up properly, it was 100% accurate because it had me as warning track power all day long, which is just about perfect. So we'll get to question and answers because I know we have a bunch coming up, but for those that are on the phone that are interested in learning more about the NCSA side of things and how you as an athlete, you as a family can get connected, the most important thing that you could do is set up your recruiting assessment. And down at the bottom of the screen, you can see right there, it says recruit blast to 797979. And you'll get the chance to schedule that 45-minute call where we're going to, talk about where you're at currently in the recruiting process, talk about what your goals are. And probably most importantly is you'll get a verified tag on your profile. And what that does is that tells one, it makes you searchable by college coaches, but then also tells them that you've been through that process and that you're really interested in playing at the next level, right? Because we don't want people going in and creating profiles that are unsure and coaches are getting a headache trying to reach out to you and not getting any response. We take our relationship and, the way that we handle the college coaches with the utmost respect. So that's the purpose for that. If you're a coach on the line and you want to learn more about the team product and how to look at your athletes and assist them through that, same thing, you could schedule that meeting. You could reach out to me directly and we'll connect any of your players to your NCSA Team Edition account. And then you'll also be able to see their their blast metrics in there, which is what I showed you on that screen share a little while ago. The other thing, and Jeff, you touched on this earlier, but there is that promotion going on for the Blast sensor, for that package, for the whole deal. If you go to the Blast website and you type in NCSA baseball, you'll have that 75. I think it's 75 for everyone now, but that way we know you're a part of this, and we can do a little bit more hand holding and make sure those systems and those different integrations get connected a little bit better. So be sure to take advantage of that program.
Yep, definitely utilize that NCSA code. Just so you guys know, on top of that sensor price, the $75 sensor price, there's going to be a cost for the player profile as well. It's not included. And again, that's either going to be $60 for the year or $695 per month. And then there's team package pricing as well if you're interested in getting a 12 plus guys on board.
Absolutely. So with all that, I mean, I know in the Q&A box down here, we had a number of them come through, and I can kind of dish them off for some of the more Blast specific ones. This one says, without the premium services, do you only have access to bat speed, peak hand speed, attack angle, and vertical bat angle? If so, can you please go over how to best interpret and improve upon those metrics?
Yep.
So it's a two-part question.
Yep, I've got that one. So you are correct. Without premium services, you only have access to those metrics mentioned. And again, bat speed, peak hand speed, attack angle, and vertical bat angle. How to best interpret and move on those metrics? Well, bat speed is going to be important whether you are 5 years old or 25 years old. If you're 25 years old and still playing baseball, likely you've got the bat speed to play at that level, unless you're playing in a beer league. But I would always make sure that you're making progress in that category. Heavy bat training, single hand, top hand, bottom hand drills, involving your lower half more can all help increase bat speed. If you want to look at bat speed and hand speed together, it could be a really solid way of making sure that when you do increase bat speed, your hand speed is increasing at an appropriate ratio. We can plot those in Microsoft Excel on just a little scatter plot. And what we're going to look at is how tight that distribution is to a best fit line. The more spread out that is, shows me how really inconsistent you're moving, So if, for example, I'm a player, and this isn't the perfect ratio, this is just for the sake of easy math. If I'm a player and I'm swinging the bat 60 miles an hour on average, and my hand speed is on average 20 miles an hour, that's going to be a 3-to-1 ratio. So if my bat speed increases to 63 miles an hour, I should see, if everything's still happening in sequence, my hand speed increase to 21 miles an hour. If my bat speed goes up to 61 miles an hour, my hand speed on that very same swing goes down to 17 miles an hour. My barrel sped up, my hand slowed down, and my bat's dragging. So a good way to look at those two metrics side by side. Attack angle is really important in creating consistent launch angles. So whether you have premium services or not, it's considered by me our most customizable metric and unique to that player. If you've got a big power guy who keeps hitting head high line drives and they're just absolute missiles, but they're falling in there for singles, they're getting caught in that thick outfield grass and maybe not finding the gap, maybe check what his attack angle is. If he's at 5 degrees and you can get him up to 12 and he starts lifting some more of those balls over the outfielder's head and eventually the outfield wall, then I think that's a win. If you've got a kid who's 5'6", 100 pounds, and outfielders are taking 3 steps back and camping under those fly balls, then that's somebody, again, you would want to take the opposite approach. Maybe get that attack angle from 10 or 15 degrees down to 0 or 5 degrees. So you can definitely act on those metrics and work to improve.
And just one thing to touch on with the attack angle, and this is more just like a philosophical baseball thing or maybe lost in translation. When you're looking at the younger kids, if you're looking at like a coach pitch league or, the entry level little league stuff, kids are throwing balls in there with an arc on them, right? They're coming actually like down into the zone. It drives me crazy when I see like dads pitching to their kids and they're standing up, they're 6'2", and they're throwing to, their son that's like 4 feet tall. Because that's almost like trying to hit a 7-iron, right? Because their attack angle needs to be like this. And as you get older and that ball flattens out and you get to high school and college and professional baseball where guys are 90 miles an hour, and the fastball's coming in at about 8 degrees, That's where that has to flatten out to. When you see breaking balls, you know, big 12-6 breaking balls, you're gonna have to increase the attack angle. So the bottom line is, attack angle is only as good as the pitch it's trying to match, right? And the more that can be on plane with the ball, the more success you're going to have. And again, Ted Williams was saying this 70 years ago, and now we have a way to measure pretty easily. So just be aware that it's not a one size fits all answer, and there's a good way to look at it.
Yep.
Yes, Billy, we'll share this video with everybody. That was one of the questions. Minimum standards that are recommended that you should meet before letting college coaches know the data. You know, so I guess this is like an exposure versus being exposed question. And I'll say, I mean, Jeff, you hit on this a little bit earlier, but sometimes telling the story of improvement is an important one. College coaches, they know that at 14, 15, 16, you're gonna get bigger, faster, stronger as you go into your 17, 18, 19-year-old years. They've been through it many times. But if they look at certain parts of your swing, certain aspects of your swing, like the ratios that you were talking about, some other things that they're able to create the consistency by which they swing, they know that eventually those movements are going to play at a higher level, right? So I think that getting information out is a good thing rather than withholding it. And then constantly updating it and getting in the routine of doing that is probably paramount.
Yep. There are metric ranges available on Blast Motion's website if that's a concern of yours. If your son or daughter, if you're worried that they might fall outside the desired range for Division I or college baseball, so you can check on that to maybe verify if you would or wouldn't want them to, let's say, share their profile, because you might think their on-field performance would speak more powerfully than their metrics. But to Nelson's point, if they're younger and you want to load them up there and again use that to highlight their improvement, I think that's really powerful as well. I will say bat speed is going to be the number one predictor of success in high school, and is almost considered like pitching velocity, where if you have it, that's going to take you to the next level, at which point it's going to be important to fine tune it. So the only one I would be concerned about being below the standard would be bat speed. If you want to play at a high level Division I play on a high level Division I college baseball team, you better be swinging above 65 miles an hour.
And I can actually, I'll share this. I think you guys have done a really nice job on social media of, you know, sharing a lot of that information. Here's just one that was tweeted out the other day about time to impact, and you know what those certain ranges are. And for those that don't understand time to impact, if your bat speed is fantastic, but it takes you a while to get to the baseball, you might get beat on some pitches. It means you're getting long. You probably see a lot of guys when they're testing for ball exit speed or exit velocity off a tee, they're going to have exactly that. They might have a higher bat speed, but they're going to be really long to the ball, so that time to impact number is also going to go up, which makes it's going to make it really hard to hit. Either that, or they're going to have to start striding before the pitcher even releases the ball. But those two things have to work in unison. But if anybody is on here that doesn't follow Blast Baseball on social media, definitely dive into there. Also, obviously, look in the app and on the website, because it does a great job of breaking those down.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's exactly what I mean by fine tuning it. If you've got bat speed in high school and you're facing 82, and the kid's gonna throw that low and outside fastball, you know, right down the middle, and doesn't have plus breaking stuff, then that's going to be enough to catch those 2 or 3 mistakes that happen every single at bat. But once guys start to gather data on every single at bat you've taken, you know, maybe you have some success your freshman year, and then it turns out that you know that other teams in the conference know that you're going to struggle on any ball up in the zone, and you start to get a little more challenged. That's when it's important to develop that rotation to bring the time to contact down. Make sure you're on plane and your path to the baseball is dialed, so you're not creating those inefficiencies, and then make sure that your body and bat are in a solid position to get to any ball up, down, or in and out.
For sure. Here's another question asked about using different bats within the app and how to differentiate between that. You know, some guys are using overload bats. That's used in this example. Other guys are train with wood, and then they play with metal, obviously. So how do you do that within the app, and how do you do that when you're using Blast?
So you can add up to 10 bats in the Blast Motion app, which in Blast Connect they'll all be tagged. So I showed you earlier when I dove into it, it tagged, I think I showed Louisville Slugger 3128. So what you can do is apply a filter and uncheck that box of the 37-inch hammer, and just look at your 3229.
Call you Thor, that 37-inch overload. But Jason, also know that, I think after reading this again, you're asking about college coaches looking at it. In order for that information to be public or be published to them, you have to actually go through that process that we went through earlier, both on the Blast profile and also with NCSA. So there's really three pieces to that. Like, a coach isn't just going to have on mission access to every swing that you've taken. You have to decide which sessions, which swings that they're going to have access to, and you're going to promote. How can we get the swing analysis report? And I think that was on a previous slide, maybe.
I know what he's talking about. I can share my screen, and I'd love to go into that real quick. It's really cool.
Is that the grid?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If you want to share your screen again, love to see that.
Working?
Yep.
Cool. So this is our player swing profile. We, our MLB team developed this internally for us to send out to our clients on the amateur side. So the instructions are right here in tab 1. It's simple. You just export your player data to Microsoft Excel, paste it in tab number 2, and then it spits out your player analysis report right here on the 3rd tab. So instead of looking at plane connection rotation, it separates the swing into 4 different yet similar categories, but what we're doing is we're looking at 2 metrics at the same time. First one's going to be power, bat speed, which is going to be your floor, definitely needed if you want to have power, and then rotational acceleration, which is going to be your ceiling. Someone who swings 75 miles an hour with 4 Gs of rotation is going to have much less power than somebody who swings 75 miles an hour with 20 Gs of rotation, and the guy with the 20 Gs of rotation is going to have more time to see that pitch in. So get that scatter plot, get it to the green. Contact metrics, look at on-plane efficiency. So again, your path to the baseball, along with your attack angle. So Nelson, you mentioned it earlier, if the pitch is coming in like this, I wouldn't want to see somebody with a 30-degree attack angle. Most of the time when you're playing at a high level, you're going to want an attack angle between 5 and 20 degrees. And what that does is, again, we'll create a more consistent launch angle and also ensure that you're going to be on the pitch plane. So if we're looking at this guy right here, his attack angle is consistently between, let's say, 22 and 4. I would like that to be a little more consistent and represent more of the type of player that is. If it's a power guy, he could be towards the top of that green square. If he's a contact guy, I would want him towards the middle or maybe the bottom. But he's not so on plane. You want to be above 70%. He's below 74. It looks like about 40% of his hacks. And I think that's a result of how inconsistent his load is. So in the next tab, we're looking at early connection along with vertical bat angle. I don't pay much attention to vertical bat angle in this 3rd section right here. All I'm looking at is how these dots vary according to the y-axis. So again, we're measuring the bat and body relationship at the very start of your swing. On this swing right here, he's at 118 degrees. Now, this might be an outlier. He's not consistently up around 118 degrees. I could say, even if I took this one where he was at 112, if I look at this swing, he's at 90 right here. So there's a 22-degree difference in a starting point based on where based on the relationship his bat and body you're making. It's like, man, how can you be efficient to the baseball, and how can you have a repeatable
a lot of movement?
Swing? Sorry?
I said there's a lot of movement there.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And he's starting to swing with a vertical bat here. He's starting to swing with a flat bat on the very next pitch. How can you have an efficient path to the ball, and how can you be an efficient mover if you can't begin in the same position? And then finally, we're looking at your impact position. So that's going to be your vertical bat angle along with your connection at impact score. So the type of distribution we're looking for here is a perfectly flat line right around 90 degrees. Vertical bat angle is a decent indicator of pitch location. So if you have a vertical bat angle closer to 0, around -10, -20, that's going to be a pitch up in the zone. You can't hit a pitch up in the zone with a really steep bat. A steeper bat at -40, though, will be appropriate for driving a ball down in the zone. For lack of a better word, golfing it. This player right here, again, we want it to be as tight as possible along that 90-degree line. This player right here sort of seems like he's sloping up and to the right, which gives me a bit of a hint that he's closer to where he needs to be, maybe around 80 degrees, still not quite at 90 for those pitches down in the zone. And then for those pitches up in the zone, if he's averaging around 75, it's showing me that he's approaching that pitch, that low and outside pitch in more of an appropriate posture. But when that pitch goes up in the zone, he's keeping his body in that same position and just changing where his bat's going to be located. Well, at least the idea that we support at Blast as far as adjusting to pitches in different locations goes, is that it should come from a change in body tilt, not a change in path that your hands or bat take to the baseball. The contact point will change, but your swing should remain the same. If that pitch is going to be down and out, you're going to tilt your spine a couple degrees over home plate. If that pitch is up and in, you're going to remain upright, remain balanced, and give your hands room to work inside that baseball.
Yeah, and to tie the loop on that, what you just described is why 5 years ago, I was watching a lot of the heat maps and everything in Major League Baseball. Like the best pitch to throw right now is a fastball up and away, right? Because everybody's swing started changing, and now we've seen the stats obviously show that as well. But it was a trend in the game, right? And I think a lot of guys were training that way. So you see a lot of similar data from guys coming up through it. We had a question here. Where to go? This one says, do the coaches that have a subscription get more data and more access than if you're just a player?
The coaches have the ability to access any player on the platform, as well as collect data themselves. Players will only have the ability to access their own profile, and coaches can also access any player's swing in real time. If each player on your team has their own sensor, it'll automatically connect that device and send the swing data to the coach's device via Bluetooth. And they're able to run a practice where you can share sensors as well. Players, again, can only control their own profile and view their own profile and use one sensor at a time.
Are AxeBats supported on the Android version?
They are not. They are not. Android is behind iOS, but we're working to obviously get it up to speed.
And this, I guess we can answer this a different way. It's asking for examples of college coaches that use data to evaluate players. What are some of the schools that you actively work with right now that are training with Blast? Because I think those two are one and the same.
I don't want to mention any specifics just in case I don't have the liberty to, but
okay.
We, as far as conferences go, any conference that you want to name, we probably have at least 4 clients in that conference. A lot of guys, I would even say a solid majority in the Pac-12, SEC, Ivy League, Big 10, Big 12, you name it, all divisions.
Sure.
And
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, I was going to say, as far as how they value data, from a recruiting standpoint, the example that I give is if I'm looking at a player who is 6'2", 220 pounds, who has 65 miles an hour worth of bat speed and 8 Gs of rotational acceleration, or a player who is 6'2", 175 pounds, 62 miles an hour bat speed and 18 Gs of rotational acceleration. There's a couple different approaches I can take with those two individuals. I can either try to unlock the larger dude's lower half, his sequencing increases mobility, and get that rotational acceleration number up, which I recognize is probably the most difficult metric to increase. Or I can go with the skinny beam pole, pack 45 pounds on him, require him to drink a half gallon of chocolate milk every single day, get him on a solid weight room program, he already has those rotational acceleration numbers, and that strength training might be able to spike his bat speed and get him to the level that he needs to be at in order to compete at a high level. So as far as what they look for, man, depends on their approach. It's a variety of things that really resonate with these guys, and it all depends on what they value. So
there's another question on here. And I think we answered this earlier. Yeah, when you set up your profile, you actually put what level they're playing at. So you'll be compared against other high school players. The question was, does the player's swing profile load high school information instead of MLB? That's at your discretion. If you want to compare yourself to a big leaguer, you can do that. But as you're going through the create your profile process, you decide that, but then also you can go in there and change it at any time as well, right?
Yep. One thing to keep in mind is that the scores, the plane score, connection score, and rotation score are weighted values applied to the actual metrics that are picked up. So plane score is a translation of your on-plane efficiency. Your on-plane efficiency is not going to change. And for our clients that do really value blast data when recruiting, they're educated by us to not pay any attention to the score, just the hard numbers. So as far as the scores go, they're more to show you how you stack up against your level of play as a player. But on the recruiting side, it's just going to be based on the hard numbers.
Is there a sheet that can be downloaded that has all the metrics by level that they can access?
Yep, all that information is available on the Blast Motion website. If you go to blastmotion.com, sport, baseball, there's a number of resources available if you just click around a little bit.
All right. This question, I mean, I think can be answered just because of what's going on. But so, would you recommend game data versus practice data? You get to decide what session type it is. In most settings, or in most places, like you can't get game data. If you're a high school player or a college player currently, I know that's something that's been talked about, something that's being worked towards. So I think both are super useful, and obviously anytime you can get your hands on game data, that's excellent. But also remember that the volume of swings that have been collected, it's really hard to get that game data, so it's hard to compare apples to apples with that. Do you think that's accurate? Anything you want to add to it?
I would say a solid baseline that paints a really good picture of a swing is going to be either 200 swings from a variety of environments. Definitely not 200 swings off of a tee, although based on the times now, if you're going to take tee swings, make sure you make an effort to make them as dynamic and unpredictable, I guess, as possible. Really try to make them challenging.
Move the locations and everything.
Exactly. But for in-game data, I would say it's about 50 swings. And what you'll see is sometimes you'll see guys be much worse off in-game than in batting practice or in practice. Those will be your BP stars. You'll sometimes see guys with insanely better rotation numbers in-game versus in practice, because those are the guys that for some reason just turn it on, the adrenaline gets going, and they just grip and rip, baby. And then you'll see some guys who are really, really consistent. And as far as who is going to have success, the BP star obviously is not going to have success in game, but the guys who grip and rip will, and the guys who are consistent will too. I think it's really, really valuable to have. And I think it really allows you to get some extra insights into a player's swing that help coaches reflect on the types of practices they're running. So if you are able to have a really long fall season with a lot of inter squads and you collect 50 in-game swings per guy and you see a huge difference between your practice data set and your in-game data set, that can get you asking some questions. Okay, where are these swings breaking down from practice to in-game? How can I change our practice plan or our batting practice rounds to make them more realistic or put more pressure on the guys? I know when I was in high school, we would do this thing called the gauntlet, where like coach would be up there really peppering BP, and the whole team would just hover around as close as it was safe behind a net, home plate, just screaming and heckling the hell out of that guy, trying to make him scared, trying to make him afraid, and all he'd have to do is hit a sac fly. And when I was at an ABCA Barnstormer event last year, a pitching coach did something similar where he would, for the 0-2 rounds where guys would have to bury a slider, he would play like really disturbing sounds on really high volume from a massive speaker right behind each pitcher. So the guy's up there during this presentation trying to bury an 0-2 slider, and there's sounds of guys like throwing up, yakking their brains out in the background on volume 99. And it's like, man, I mean, it still won't simulate bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, runner on third, full count, but it's a pretty creative way of trying to do that at practice.
Yeah, no doubt. That's some wild stuff that you see out there, and there's more and more people doing similar type things. So there has to be something to it. Question here, Cruz asked, he said that he already has an NCSA membership. He bought a Blast sensor, and how do you link that? How do you link the 2 data files? Again, we can share the video with you afterwards. Jeff walked through the steps earlier, and it's actually in the resource library now. There's a short, like 2-3 minute video that will walk you through it. But essentially, you just go into your profile, you go into the settings, you hit share to NCSA, you pick what session you want, and then you publish it. And it should, if the email addresses are correct, it should line up. If you have any questions about that, Cruz, definitely reach out to me and I can help you with it. Zach asked about signifying if it was live pitching, so actually game footage again versus batting practice. And yes, you set your environment for each session when you begin training. I think we pretty much touched on all of these. Any other questions that you saw come through, or anything else that you wanted to add before we hop off here?
No, this was great. Can't wait to send it out internally and let everybody let me have it. But appreciate you having me on. This was phenomenal. All the questions were great, guys. Thank you everybody for joining as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's refreshing to be able to talk about different things. I know this is the world that you live in. For a lot of people, though, that were joining us on Facebook Live or in this webinar, it's new and it's kind of novel to them. And the best advice I can give to you coaches that maybe are a little bit more unfamiliar with it, or even parents or players for that matter, is start with the basics. I think when it comes to anything that's new, oftentimes we try to tackle everything at once. And that new reporting that the MLB team created is fantastic, but it's something that I've been exposed to before, something that a world that you live in. But don't let that deter you from just trying to get a grasp of the basics and build off that information, build off that knowledge, and eventually get to that point. And I think that's the thing. If anything that you can walk away with from this is just know that there's not a better tool to be able to track, to be able to follow, to be able to learn about your swing than Blast. And you can divulge that as much or as little as you want, but if nothing else, got to take action. So just as you said, I appreciate you guys all joining us. I'll share the recording with everyone later on, probably tomorrow. And if you have any questions between now and then, or even afterwards, feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we'd be happy to help you out. So have a great weekend, everybody, and go out and take some more swings.